It's going to get into the details of the actual new program and collection systems. And then I'll follow back up after a presentation by sending a Food System Alliance and the plot with resources that we have available to help you be successful. So we'll go to the first slide, Judy. So why start a food scraps recycling program? Well, there's been multiple reasons over the past decade to get us to this point. A lot of work has gone into this to be here, to be embarking on such a journey for diversion and zero waste. Essentially, at the most simple element of it is why food scraps? Well, it's a major portion of what's generated within our waste stream today. Food scraps in particular represents over 30% of landfill materials. So a major portion of what's going to the landfill prior to this program is organics, and a major portion of that is food scraps. 6 million tons of food scraps is generated in California every year. A significant amount of that could obviously be diverted and recycled. It could also be prevented and or donated. Over 20% of what gets thrown away is still edible. So I know we're going to be talking a little bit about not just food scraps recycling today, but we're going to be talking about waste prevention as well as food recovery. So there's a lot of drivers towards that. It's an opportunity to feed people first, then recycle, and really an opportunity to mitigate these materials going to the landfill. Another major reason why we focus our attention towards food scraps recycling is that organics, when deposited in a landfill, creates methane emissions. And methane emissions is the second largest generator in California. So when we talk about climate action, reduction of methane emissions, targeting organics materials from the landfill and removing that from the landfill is really a great way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, such as methane emissions, which are some of the most potent emissions that contribute to climate change. So ultimately, reducing food scraps from the landfill not only helps our diversion and zero waste goals, but it also helps us achieve our climate action goals. The city of Oceanside was an early adopter for zero waste about a decade ago. In 2011, we set a zero waste goal of 75 to 90% diversion by 2020. Most recently, we have established and passed a climate action plan, which identifies our zero waste efforts as a major contributor towards achieving our goals for methane emission reductions. So all of these elements have really brought us to this point to bring this system to our Oceanside businesses. And then also our chapter code, municipal code chapter 13 does require the diversion of organics materials. And go to the next slide. So not only have we had, from a zero waste perspective, policy drivers, there's been a lot of laws that have led us to developing this system and service. In particular, our initial laws for diversion were AB 939, which required 50% recycling rate across the state. AB 341 passed in 2014 that required mandatory commercial recycling. Oceanside was on the front end of setting up a recycling system for our businesses, and we have a very robust recycling program. And a lot of thanks can be given to our business community. They have done a phenomenal job in achieving greater diversion through recycling. AB 1826 was passed in 2015, 2016. That is a statewide mandate for commercial organics diversion. And then most recently, SB 1383 was passed, which requires a landfill reduction of organics by 50% by 2020 and 75% by 2025. And then lastly, most recently, AB 827 passed, which required organics recycling collection containers in businesses. So there have been a lot of laws leading us towards this direction that has mandated the diversion of not only recycling of commingled recyclables, but has mandated the diversion of food scraps and organics. And the city has been closely following these laws to ensure that not only we're compliant with them, but we're successful in a way that supports our community and supports our businesses. And we're successful in a way that not only provides compliance, but provides excellent service at cost competitive rates. So we can move on to the next slide. So following these policy initiatives for zero waste, as well as all of these regulations, we recently renegotiated a contract amendment with Waste Management. We currently have robust systems for recycling. We have a robust and successful contract that we renegotiated in 2012 to support our zero waste goals. But we realized that in order to meet these mandates, state mandates for food scraps diversion, that we needed to set up a collection system. And Waste Management was our partner to do that. So last fall, we renegotiated our contract with Waste Management. We negotiated an amendment for the collection of commercial food scrap recycling services. Currently, today's state mandates mandate food scrap recycling for commercial businesses. SB 1383 will carry that mandate over to all generators, but that doesn't come into effect until 2022. Can we go back on the slides? We're passing forward. So, but anyways, so we amended the contract last year to establish a food scraps recycling collection services commencing January 1st of this year. The contract amendment set up rates that incentivized recycling and organics. We'll go into detail about that shortly, but basically we set up a system that makes recycling and food scraps diversion more cost-effective than landfilling. Food scraps collection services are set at 75% of the landfill rates, and the recycling is set at 50%. So basically, by setting up recycling systems and food scrap systems at your business, you have an opportunity to save money and reduce the amount you're paying to dispose of materials to landfill. The contract amendment included enhanced public services. We've increased city can litter abatement services across the city and in the downtown area. And then we also provided for significant zero waste technical assistance outreach. We'll go over that a little bit later, but we're here to help you as the business community be successful with this new food scraps recycling system. And lastly, the contract amendment also did provide some enhanced residential organics programming. We are not doing food scrap collection services at the residential level yet. That is something we're working to develop down the line in compliance with state mandates. However, we are offering programs for backyard composting, food waste prevention, etc. So a lot went into this negotiation, and we're very excited this year to launch the new system for food scraps recycling for businesses. So one of the biggest components before we start the video is that when we were developing this system, we really wanted to make it something that was attractive to our business community. I didn't want to have to focus on the fact that it's mandated, you're required to do it. No one likes to hear that. What I wanted to focus on is creating a system that really incentivizes recycling. So when my team, our zero waste technical assistance team, which includes staff members from the city and waste management, as well as our partnering teams from Go2Zero and SES, when my team reaches out to you, we want to work with you to really right size your services to best meet your needs, and best meet your needs anytime throughout the year based upon seasonality, based upon, COVID impacts. We want to make sure that you don't have too much trash service. You have just the right amount of recycling and just the right amount of food scrap service, no matter what type business you are. So really major important of this new system is that we set up the system to really incentivize recycling and food scraps and to create an opportunity for right sizing. So a lot of you have received letters, have gotten calls, have even gotten visits from our zero waste technical assistance team. And those conversations have surrounded, how can we help you right size for success? So here's a little video. I don't know if the volume's going to work, so if not, I'll kind of script it, but it's just a really quick doodle video of how to right size, and we'll go over this in a little more detail later as well. So this shows you how right sizing can help your business. Right sizing 101. So let's assume you have a 4-yard bin currently emptied 2 times a week. It is only slightly half full each time the truck comes to dump it because you don't want your bins overflowing. This service costs you a little over $300 a month. Now let's assume that 50% of what is in your bin is unflattened cardboard boxes, paper, and other recyclable materials. Then you also have about 20%, which is food and food soiled paper. Now let's take those recyclable items and put them into a 3-yard recycle bin and put those food scraps into a 64-gallon cart. And that leaves only enough landfill to fill a smaller 3-yard bin 1 time per week. This is right sizing, and it just saved you $68 each month and $860 over a year. As you can see, right sizing is a great opportunity to ensure that you have the correct frequency and use of your collection services. So again, when we reach out to you, we really want to work with you to right size. A lot of people think, well, I need my landfill bin. I need it 5 times a week. I don't want food scraps to cost me more money. And the reality is a lot of us actually have more service than what we need, or a lot of us don't realize that these new programs actually take the majority of the materials out of your landfill bin. Daniel will be going into more detail of what is accepted in a food scraps bin and what is accepted in the recycling. But the genius thing about this new program, and the reason why we're doing it, is currently today we're at a 68% recycling rate for Oceanside. Again, our goal is 75% by 2020. By implementing food scraps recycling services, we'll look to increase diversion by over 10%. That's going to help us meet our zero waste goals and ultimately going to help us collectively and individually reduce the amount of materials going to the landfill. That helps save the environment while also helping our businesses save cost. You can go to the next slide. So the rollout. We started the rollout program starting January 1st of 2020. Our zero waste technical assistance team throughout January and February met with the majority of businesses across the city. We were out there, boots on the ground in our yellow zero waste technical assistance vest, meeting with businesses, trying to introduce them to the new program. And then we were set to actually set up delivery, but then COVID hit. So we've delayed it a bit. Well, we've now kind of relaunched or re-engaged. We've really focused our technical assistance on helping businesses right size as well as downsize. So, you know, if you've had a little less operations, you realize you don't need that extra space, we're really working with businesses to make sure this is something that you can move forward with, even in a COVID environment. So since January, we've had multiple points of contact. We've sent out multiple letters. We've done social media outreach. We've provided those in-person site visits prior to COVID. We've also been reaching out and calling every business over the past month and a half, and then emailing and confirming services. Delivery of services started August 17th for our business community. It started 2 weeks prior for our own city facilities. So city facilities are, you know, we have to model the correct behavior. So we're also doing food scraps recycling at our facilities. Between August and October, Waste Management will be rolling out services to our business community. Prior to receiving your services, you will be reached out to by our Zero Waste team. They will have given you a phone call. If you didn't answer, they'll leave you a voicemail. They will have sent you an email, and then they'll also send you a letter confirming the service adjustments that we're recommending. If we don't hear from you, we are going to deliver the services. We are trying again to right size and downsize to mitigate any cost impact. But if we hear from you and you say, well, I'm not ready, or I don't want that, or I have questions, we're also available to help you because we want this to be successful. We want to roll this out throughout the fall, but we also want to be able to be supportive to your needs and offer any assistance you may have to be successful. So as part of that, not only are we offering, those phone calls and we're offering resources and technical assistance, we're available to meet with you in person within safety guidelines. And we're also available now to be available virtually. So if you want a phone call appointment with myself or one of my team members, we can do that over FaceTime. We can troubleshoot any issues may have. We just want you to be successful as we roll out this program for all of our businesses across the city of Oceanside. The next slide. So again, we're in this together. City facilities, we've already started. I've already been handling a bunch of questions in regards to that. People are getting excited, and we're here to help. If you'd like to reach out to my city team, if you have any questions, any concerns, please feel free to email Green Oceanside at any time. We'll get back to you, or to also visit our website at greenoceanside.org. So I think I'm going to hand it over to Judy, and she'll be introducing Daniel.
Thanks, Colleen. I appreciate the presentation. And we do have one question that's continued to come up a couple times, is that the audience would like to know if the video or the slide presentation will be available afterwards.
Yes, so all of the outreach materials are currently available at greenoceanside.org, and then also Waste Management's website. Daniel can give you that website as well. The videos, the doodling video and then some of the training videos, they should be up by the end of the week. we had to really transition things with COVID. You know, originally we're going to do everything like print, website, in person. So now we've had to redesign and recreate everything virtually. But the silver lining of that is we've just seen increased participation. In this workshop alone, I normally only have like 30 businesses. Today, you know, we've had over 90 registrants. So again, thank you for participating. But please visit greenearthsite.org regularly. And if you don't see the information, can't find it, please just email us and we will send you the information and share.
Great, thanks, Colleen. And we will continue to take other questions if they come through for Colleen. Just go ahead and type those in the chat box because Daniel's going to add on to Colleen's presentation and provide a bit more background on the program. So with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who's Daniel Butler. Daniel Butler has been with Waste Management for 6 years and is the public sector manager for the City of Oceanside's exclusive solid waste franchise agreement. Daniel has been Waste Management's lead project manager for the implementation and launch of Oceanside's commercial food scrap program. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks, Judy, and thanks for the transition, Colleen. So I'm just going to jump right into what it is we're actually accepting with this program, and that's obviously food. Right, so as you can see here, basically any kind of food scrap that you can think of when it comes to meats, bones, vegetables, the whole gamut, right? We want all that food out of the landfill bin and into our brown, beautiful brown bins you see behind me here. And in addition to that food, and as Colleen was kind of alluding to, the great thing about this program is we can accept food soiled paper as well. So the napkins that you use during your meals, any sort of paper towels, paper cups, those things can all be processed into the system that we're going to give you a little more detail in as we get going through. So we'll go to the next slide. You got it. Perfect. So basically, what is it that we do with these food scraps that we collect? I know a lot of people can be skeptical sometimes about, are they actually being recycled? Is the effort really worth it? And we're here to tell you that it really is, right? So this is kind of just a nexus of how we pick up the material and then where it goes to, right? So from the beginning, the customer, amazing customers of Oceanside that you are, you separate the food waste out of your landfill bins into the brown bins. We collect it. We take it up to what we call our core process facility. The one we have closest to Oceanside is in Orange, California, so in Orange County. From that point, we process it there at our core facility and take it to a wastewater treatment facility where we co-digest that material and then produce biogas from it. So it really is getting processed, and it's an amazing system that we have set up. Just as important as what we're putting into what's acceptable into our bins, we need you to understand too, like what is not acceptable. A lot of the stuff that's not acceptable can actually go into the recycling bin, right? Like glass and clean paper, things like that. We want to make sure not to contaminate the load, because if we bring it to that facility with too much stuff that's not acceptable, so especially glass, it can really do harm to that system. And we want to make sure that you're educated enough that you understand what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And we have an amazing outreach team. Judy mentioned that she's on this project. Her team has been phenomenal. We also work with Tracy Bills with SCS Engineers, and I can't stress enough how amazing they've been throughout this entire thing. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands the hard work they've done for your community. They've done a great job. So with food scraps being available now, it really is not a lot left for those landfill bins. And when I'm talking about landfill bins, I'm talking about the green bins behind your businesses, or even the gray carts, the toters you may use that you might be familiar with from your homes around town, or if you use them as a commercial for your commercial services. So a lot of what's already in the landfill bins can go into the food scraps bins, and potentially what you're already throwing in the landfill bin too, most likely can go into the recycling bin. So you really are in a position where that landfill service can be lowered as much as possible. And you have to excuse me, it's super hot out here in this yard that Colleen made me stand in. So you have to excuse the sweat and the awkwardness, but I'm doing my best. Let's go to the next one there, Judy. So just to explain what exactly is available for you with the food scraps, it's right behind me, right? We got the 2-yard bin here, big dumpster bin. And we actually do recommend this if you have the space for it, because you likely will have enough material to throw into there when possible. But if not, if you are a small generator, we do have that small 64-gallon cart over there as well. And that can be included in a commercial cart bundle, which I'll explain in more detail. So the most important thing about this food scraps program is we were able to set up the system to make this cost incentivized, right? Food scraps is 75% of your trash landfill service, so that you really can lower that landfill service to increase your food scraps while lowering your overall bill. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about right sizing and downsizing. But the best part too is that great outreach team that I mentioned is going to deliver one of these packets to you that have so much education material in it. And Colleen did reference as well that the city website has all this material for you to take a look at, as well as our Oceanside specific WM website too. So look for this as well. And if you don't get it, you can email me personally. I'll bring it to you. So just to I guess to make sure that you understand that the normal services that were already available to you are still going to be available to you. The same system we had set up before, it's still there. We're just adding the food scraps program to better enable you to, help with recycling and divert material from the landfill. And so that commercial cart bundled service that I mentioned earlier includes a 96-gallon trash cart, a 96-gallon recycling cart, and then this 64-gallon food scraps cart. So when I say 96-gallon, that's the biggest cart that you'll likely see around town. There's 3 different sizes. That 96-gallon one is the biggest one. We also have a 3- and 4-yard bins available. Those are those dumpster bins that you're familiar with, I'm sure, if you're from the commercial community there. We say 3 and 4 yards available, but I can't stress enough the option for a 3-yard. 3-yard is something that can really help you out with your bill later on. And we'll talk about that with right sizing, but that's all that is still available to you. And then there's also green waste available to you too. If you have landscaping or any kind of yard trimmings on your property, that if your gardening, if your gardener doesn't take it themselves and they need to put it somewhere, we can offer that service for you too. And that'll be diverted from the landfill as well. Okay, so we're gonna go over, well, I think I have that slide, so you can go to the next one. We're gonna go over a couple of different scenarios on right sizing. The first one is an actual customer. This is a food service customer that, we can see the services they start with and the services that they can move to if they add food scraps. So we just wanna make sure that you understand that we're sensitive to what's happening right now, right? With the COVID-19 pandemic and the way the economy is and the way your business may not be operating 100% of what it was pre-COVID. So right sizing will help you save money as well as downsizing. And so downsizing is a concept that we've come up with in Oceanside, that you may have always had this level of service, but you may not need it moving forward. So we do encourage you to understand that your waste stream and your volume might be lower. And if that's lower, you should definitely lower your services so that we're not dumping air and you're not losing money on something that you're really not getting that service for. So we just want to make sure that, when we walk through this right sizing component here, I know that we have lowered the overall cubic yardage in this situation. But the important thing is that if you look, we added a 2-yarder going 6 times a week and then took away that extra bin so that trash doesn't go as much. But if you do keep that cubic yardage the same, right? So we've lost 4 cubic yards in this right sizing situation. Even if you keep it the same, that bill goes up in a nominal amount, right? And so you can still do what's right. You can still recycle your food waste, your food scraps, and your bill is really not affected to the degree that you may worry about with adding a 3rd stream to your services. The next right sizing situation is not necessarily a food service business. It's your typical office retail, your typical business that you may automatically already be thinking, I don't have any food. My employees come, they eat their food, they throw it away, or they eat it all, they don't throw anything away. And so we want to make sure we emphasize that food soil paper is still acceptable in the stream. So even in this situation, In this particular situation, actually, the recycling levels are too low to begin with. And so we want to make sure that you understand a lot of the stuff that you're throwing into the landfill can actually go into the recycling bin. So we've increased the recycling bin here, lowered that 4-yarder down to a 3rd-yarder, as I mentioned before. When you have a 4-yard bin, the difference between a 4-yarder and a 3-yarder is really not as significant enough that you would end up overloading your bins. So we do encourage you to understand that that option is available too. And so in this particular situation, this customer has actually lowered their overall bill, but increased their cubic yard capacity when you include the increase in recycling and then adding the food scraps too. So this is right sizing without downsizing, but we've actually downsized your bill. And so we want to make sure that you understand, like I said, we're sensitive to your invoices and you have to find your bottom line, and we want to make sure you're successful doing the right thing environmentally, but we understand the economics of it too. So we're trying our best to make sure that we find that good happy spot for you. And so in general though, we want to make sure that you do understand best management practices, right? You always want to make sure these lids are closed with the material inside. If you have so much material that lid cannot close, you may want to take a look and see, do I need more service, or do I need to look inside that bin and say, well, maybe, if there's a lot of cardboard in your landfill, that can go into the recycling or anything along those lines, because it's really detrimental if you do keep those lids open. We have stormwater issues we have to maintain, and then overall aesthetics too, right? We want to keep these bins. We know they can get nasty. We know it's all the stuff we toss away. So we want to make sure these stay as cleanly as possible. Locks are available. Services for those locks are available. You can either get them from us or you can offer them yourselves. And I would encourage you to lock up your bins or close them away as much as you possibly can. I know that situation is not always a simple solution, but we do encourage that to remove the option for illegal dumping. You have to excuse me, I got trucks coming in the yard right now, so I'm going to do my best here. Excuse me, I can't stress this enough, is monitoring your bin regularly. I would say check all of them, right? If you're the manager or if you're the one who handles that trash or recycling or food scraps, check out what's in there. See if you're filling that bin up, because if you're not, maybe you can lower it. And we talk about that downside. You have that opportunity to still have the enough capacity for you to be successful with your programs, but lowering your bill, right? And if you're not the boss, then you look good for your boss. And if you are the boss, then obviously you're saving money on your bottom line there. So that's one thing I can't stress enough. I know that sometimes folks think that we're just out to bill them and we're not here to help, but you have a face to the Oceanside Waste Management right here, and we're here to help. I want to again bring up Go to Zero and SES. They're amazing. They've been our boots on the ground. Not so much since COVID, but they've been making calls, pestering you with emails, I'm sure. So just make sure you know that we're a resource for you, and we want you to be successful because we want this program to be successful for the city of Oceanside. So I think that's it for me. I really appreciate your time. I do apologize for the excess sweat if it's coming through pretty good here, but it's nice and humid today, and I'm out in the yard, which I love being. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate the presentation. We heard the trucks, but not too much. You were still coming through loud and clear. So we do have a few questions coming through before we get on with the questions. So there's going to be one question for Colleen, and there will be a question for you, Daniel, as well. So if you want to keep your videos on. But while we're answering questions, we're going to go ahead and launch our second poll. So I'm going to get that ready right now. And that'll give you a little bit of time to do the poll while we're doing some Q&A. So Colleen, you're going to be first up. And we have a question from somebody that's asking all of these months of the program, talking about the program. I haven't seen anything about what the costs are to the customer. So can you explain the cost, Colleen? Oh, you're muted.
Excellent question. So we do have a rate schedule available online at greenoceanside.org. So if you want to get the details or see that actual rate schedule, it is available. So essentially we have rates for landfill services for all the various types of bins. We have rates for recycling services, and we now have rates for food scrap collection services. And so those rates are set at different levels. You know, your landfill bin is going to be your full rate. Your food scrap service is going to be approximately 75% of a similar collection bin to landfill. So 75% of the landfill bin, and then recycling is approximately 50% of the landfill bin. So most simply put, you know, today, for commercial services, a 3-yard landfill bin one time a week is $118.21. A 3-yard commingled recycling bin one time a week is $58.40. And then now a 2-yard food waste bin is $88.66. So that's just an example of some of the rates. When our zero waste technical assistance team reaches out to you, or if you'd like to get kind of more granular and you'd like to reach out to them, we go over the various different costs and scenarios. So we create estimates, we show you where your current bill is at, we provide estimates to divert the food scrap material, maybe increase recycling, and give you a total rate estimate in that scenario. So we can work with any customer on, you know, what your costs are and what are your best options, similar to what Daniel talked about in regards to rate setting. And then I know there's another question on contamination and security. I'd like to kind of try to help with that. I'm not sure who you're going to have answer that, Judy.
Yeah, I was going to have Daniel do that, but go ahead, Colleen, and he can add anything if he's got additional.
Perfect. So the question said, you know, I have multiple commercial properties. I have limited space within my existing enclosures. Many enclosures, unfortunately, were designed like a decade or 30 years ago. And, you know, they may only have space for 1 bin. They may have space for 2 bins. If we're lucky, they have space for 3 and more. We changed our design standards several years ago to work with new development, to kind of design enclosures for adequate space. But I also realized that, you know, adding these new systems can be challenging with limited space. That's a reality across the state. So some of the things that the City and Waste Management have done is we have different types of services available. So, you know, if you need to go to cart service, we have cart service available. Another option for customers that don't want to do cart service because of security issues, we offer split bin service. So a split bin is a 3-yard bin that's split between trash and recycling. And then if you have space for a second bin, then you would make that a 2-yard food scraps bin. So that would provide you 3 streams of service in an enclosure that really only can hold 2 bins. So there's a bunch of different options with container sizes. You can secure the 3-yard and 2-yard bin. Daniel, maybe you can show how the lock bar works. The carts in particular, you can't really secure those. So we do recommend that those get, you know, stored in secure enclosures. You can lock an enclosure or actually get stored indoors. I've worked with other cities across the state to see what they do. We're not the first city to roll out food scraps. And a lot of times either businesses, you know, they'll secure their bins, they'll secure their enclosures, or they may actually keep some of their carts inside, so.
Yeah, so Colleen, here's that lock bar you mentioned. And then all 3 streams can get this lock bar too, right? And so I just want to make sure you're aware that that is a charged service, but it's something that can still keep your bin secure. As she mentioned, the toters or the carts here are not able to be locked through the system that we offer. I mean, you can still secure them in some sort of creative way as long as they're still available for service at the time of your service days.
Or only put them out on service days. We do also recommend that. And then at the end of the day, I know there are some fees for locks and collections, but usually that's a lot less than getting dumped on. But we're here to help you. I've gone out to hundreds of sites over the years and seen all kinds of different scenarios, and we're here to work through those scenarios with you. So if you have 1 property or multiple properties, we'll work with you on each and every account.
Thanks, Colleen. Thanks, Daniel. I think I'm going to try and get one more question that I think will be a quick one before we move on to our next presenter. So the quick question is, will we get notified before the food scrap bin is installed? Do you want to take that one, Colleen or Daniel?
Sure. So we are calling every commercial customer that, you know, every customer that has an account. We are leaving voicemails. We are sending them an email with the recommended service levels, as well as identifying a date of, delivery of those services or adjusting those services, then we're sending a follow-up letter. And so those are all the different avenues in which we're trying to communicate with the business community. These letters are coming out weeks, if not months, prior to delivery date. So I really encourage you to take a look at the email, look for the letters. If you're like, I haven't heard anything and I just want to know, please email us and we will work to get you set up. We're having to move through each route. We have approximately 3,000 customers that we're trying to roll this out and contact. So if we haven't reached you yet, but you want to know, go ahead and reach out to us. But we will be getting in touch with you prior to October. And we do have some delayed delivery options for anyone that absolutely needs it to be delayed a little bit. We're really here to help and want to be as flexible as possible within this environment. There is one other quick question that was really important I saw in the chat feature. I'm not sure if you saw, Judy, but the question was, what types of bags can we use to put our food scraps in? So Waste Management in the city set up the system, and I'm really proud of Waste Management and their processing system. So basically, you as the generator can use a clear plastic liner. So if you need to line your food scraps collection bin, you can go ahead and line your indoor food scraps collection containers. And then you could, tie that bag up and take it out to your collection bin, and Waste Management can process those liners on the back end. We don't accept film plastic as an acceptable item, but we do allow for the liners, recognizing that we need that for health and sanitation perspectives.
Great, that's really good information to share. I know that's a big question that we get out in the field. So we're going to go ahead. We have a lot of questions still coming in. Keep those coming in. But for the moment, we're going to move on to our next presenter. So our next presenter is Geertje Grutenhuis. Geertje is a program manager at the San Diego Food System Alliance, where she oversees Wasted Food Prevention Program. She's serving as a regional connector as well as providing on-the-ground programming. The Wasted Food Prevention Program provides comprehensive and specialized services to government institutions, businesses, nonprofits, and residents as they take steps to reduce food waste. I'm going to hand it over to you, Geertje.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Judy. I'm really excited to be here. So hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Geertje. I work for a nonprofit called the San Diego Food System Alliance. And we're an organization that's really focused on creating a healthier, more sustainable, and more just food system in San Diego County. I'm a program manager, and all of the initiatives and programs that I oversee are focused on food waste prevention and recovery. So just real quickly, I'll explain. Food waste prevention is preventing food waste from ending up in the bin in the first place. And I'll talk through some different strategies for how different types of food businesses can implement food waste prevention in their operations. Food recovery is the act of saving and redistributing food to people. So I'll also talk about some strategies for recovering surplus food. So looking at the slide that's up right now, in the United States, this is our pie chart. So about 40% of all food produced in the United States goes to waste. So what causes that food waste? What contributes to that 40% number? Well, if we think about the entire food supply chain, there's waste that happens at every kind of part of it. There's food waste that happens on farms, in factories, distributing and manufacturing operations, in restaurants or cafes, commercial kitchens, as well as in the homes. And if we take a look at that full supply chain, about 70% of all food waste actually occurs in households and in commercial kitchens or consumer-facing food businesses like restaurants, cafes, and other types of kitchens. So on the next slide, I wanted to just kind of highlight some of the major causes of food waste for that category in particular, thinking about maybe kitchens in hospital settings or maybe restaurants or in schools. These are the different loss reasons for what causes food waste in those types of settings. And this is applicable throughout the supply chain as well. So one of the main drivers of wasted food is overproduction, so making too much. Inventory spoilage is another reason where items that are in inventory don't get used up in time. There might be catering guarantees where there's an event and there's an overestimate of how many people might show up. Might not be as relevant with COVID now, but certainly this is something that's created a lot of waste in the past. Trim waste is another example. So items like carrot tops or maybe herb stems. These items might end up in the trash or compost. Quality and handling and plate waste are the last reasons. So moving on to the next slide. What are the solutions for food waste? And what you see on the screen here is called the food recovery hierarchy. And this kind of outlines what the different solutions are for addressing the problem of food waste. And the best solution is preventing food waste from happening in the first place. This really has the greatest benefit environmentally as well as financially. The next best strategy is donating or recovering food and providing it to people. And below that, we have some other options like animal feed, composting, and anaerobic digestion. So that's kind of where your food scrap recycling bin come into play. But there's actually some really great opportunity to reduce the amount of food scraps that are going in that bin by focusing on prevention and on recovery. So that's really what I'll drill in on today. So before I get into the specific strategies, I wanted to highlight some of the benefits of reducing wasted food. So first off, you can save money. You'll save money on food costs, but also on labor costs. It's a huge waste of labor when staff is creating food that's eventually being tossed into a landfill bin. You can comply with state laws, and Colleen touched on several of these early on, so I won't harp on them too much, but we have a couple of state laws that are requiring organics prevention and reduction in organics disposal. It's a great way to empower staff. And this is something that's been a huge learning from my personal experience with working with different types of businesses where, you know, no one likes to see food go to waste. I don't think anyone on this webinar likes seeing food go to waste. So when you really specifically, you know, create and establish goals in your organization that are commitments to food waste prevention and food donation, food recovery, it really empowers and uplifts staff spirits and helps them recognize, you know, kind of what you stand for as a business. So we've seen that this has actually played a huge role when different types of businesses implement food waste reduction programs or strategies, that staff are really engaged and really excited to participate in those initiatives. It's good for the planet. Food waste is actually a huge contributor to climate change. So by preventing wasted food, we can really, really do good for the environment as well. And then the last two here, you know, you can feed the local community through food donation programs. And all of this together makes for a really wonderful story, and it can be used to help elevate your business, set it apart from the rest, really establish your business as one that's looking at the triple bottom line, you know, people, planet, and profit, and more, the focus of customers and staff as well is on these types of issues. So you can really kind of get ahead of this trend and position yourself as a leader in environmental sustainability issues, as well as social issues and local community involvement. So looking at the next slide, I'm going to jump into some of those specific strategies that I've been alluding to. And I'll start with some strategies focused on prevention. And first off, I'm going to chat about some front of house strategies for food waste prevention. And I'll start with this fact that across all restaurant concepts, guests leave about 17% of food on their plate. So that's, you know, when you think about it, that really adds up. So what are some things that you can do to kind of prevent some of that plate waste from happening? There's a few different options that I have listed out here. You can offer smaller plates or serving dishes, offer half portions as an option, go trayless if you have a tray dining setting, and remove garnishes. On the next slide, I'll jump into some of the back of house prevention solutions. We can transition there. And I'll again start out with the fact that it's been demonstrated again and again through research that there are really tremendous financial and cost savings with these prevention solutions. And one study in particular did a review of over 1,200 food businesses and found that for every $1 invested in food loss and waste reduction, the median company realized a $14 return. So there's really a lot of, you know, financial benefits specifically with these back of house solutions where you have a little bit more control for implementing strategies. So the first strategy I want to highlight is waste tracking and analytics. And I actually have a great local example to share with you all on this one in particular. So you'll see this photo that was actually taken at Tri-City Medical Center, where staff participated in a pilot program that the Alliance developed called Smart Kitchen San Diego. and we provided sites with subsidized food waste tracking hardware and software. So that's what that kind of robotic image that you see on the screen there. It's actually a scale with a camera on top and then a tablet where staff could input what types of food were being wasted. So this is a pretty advanced food waste tracking system that this particular site started using. And after a year of participating in this program and tracking their food waste and then implementing strategies for reduction, they were able to reduce their food waste by about 48% and achieve an estimated cost savings of about $60,000. So again, thinking about this financial benefit, it's really, really impressive. So once you start to track your food waste, you can identify why food waste is happening in your business and then think about what you can do to cut back. So the next bullet here, inventory management and production planning, if you start to notice that there's a lot of items from inventory that are being tracked kind of through this food waste tracking system, then you can maybe implement some additional first in, first out trainings, or you can really do some analysis in terms of your production planning and start to cut back if you realize you're consistently overproducing specific items. Some other strategies I'll mention are utilizing food that's considered scraps or trim. And Jessica who's going to be presenting next from the plot, is really a huge champion of this kind of cooking, full ingredient utilization. So hopefully she'll be able to share some examples from what she does in her restaurant. But that's a great way to also empower staff, kind of thinking about the previous slide as well. The last two strategies I mentioned are producing in smaller quantities or doing more kind of batch cooking, specifically to reduce that overproduction. And then finally, to develop recipes that utilize commonly leftover items. So if rice is something that's consistently left over in a restaurant setting, you might consider making like an arancini or some other sort of recipe that you can use as a special or maybe add as another menu item. We'll go to the next slide. So the San Diego Food System Alliance is working with the city of Oceanside to help provide technical assistance for businesses, specifically related to prevention and recovery. And we're developing some worksheets. And this is one worksheet in particular that we're putting together that's a food waste tracking worksheet. And it essentially outlines a number of different food waste tracking strategies. So that system that you saw in the last slide with the photo of the Lean Path Tracker at Tri-City Medical Center, that's a pretty advanced software system, but it doesn't need to be that complex. You can also implement a very simple kind of pen and paper or Excel food waste tracking program in your operation. So we are putting together a worksheet that will help kind of guide and provide some examples of different food waste tracking solutions that can be implemented. So moving on to the next slide, I'll switch gears to food donation and food recovery. And the first question that always comes up when thinking and talking about food donation is liability. So there's a lot of fear for food donors that they're going to get sued if they donate food and someone gets sick. And the reality is that there are many, many laws in place that protect food donors when they donate food. And there has actually not been a single lawsuit in the United States against a food donor. So these protections and these laws are very, very robust, and there really is nothing to worry about in terms of liability on behalf of a food donor. You are completely covered when it comes to donating food. And I outlined a couple of the different specific sections of the Health and Safety Code and United States laws that protect food donors. Moving on to the next slide. Another one of the worksheets that we're developing with Oceanside is a food recovery worksheet. So this will go into some really, really nitty-gritty details on how to set up a food recovery program. So we answer questions like what types of food are eligible for recovery, what are some of the best practices in terms of food safety and cold storage when it comes to recovery, and some other logistics to think through like packaging options, labeling options, etc. So this worksheet will help you kind of work through all of those details so that you can set up a really robust food recovery and food donation process. Moving on to the next slide. I wanted to just briefly kind of talk through what the food recovery and food donation landscape and process looks like just at a very high level. So there are food donors like yourselves, different types of food businesses, grocery stores, even offices, restaurants, cafes, who have food, excess food that they want to get redistributed to the community members in need. And there are kind of two types of services that can make that happen. There are food banks or food recovery services, and then there are food recovery agencies. So I just wanted to offer kind of a couple examples of each of these types of food recovery organizations. So we have two local food banks here, Feeding San Diego and the San Diego Food Bank. And these are regional, large food banks. They have big warehouses. They often recover, rescue food from really big food donors because they have big trucks, large capacity to be able to handle those donations. On the other hand, there are smaller kind of food pantries, soup kitchens, residential care facilities, and shelters, and social enterprise kitchens that are much more kind of locally centered and focused. So an example, a couple of Oceanside examples there might be Brother Benno's. You know, they offer food and as well as other resources to unsheltered folks in Oceanside. So they're an example of a local food pantry and soup kitchen that would be great for establishing a partnership where your donation quantities are smaller, a little bit smaller in scale, and might not require a huge box truck, for example. So I'd really encourage, specifically businesses that aren't at that huge scale to consider partnering with local food recovery organizations. Another example that I really want to highlight is Green Oceanside Kitchen. So you'll see a photo on the right-hand side of the screen there. So the Green Oceanside Kitchen is operated by a nonprofit called Oceanside Kitchen Collaborative, and it's this super innovative food preservation kitchen. It's got all the state-of-the-art appliances. It's a really innovative program that the city of Oceanside has developed, and I just can't even begin to express how incredibly amazing it is and innovative it is, and lucky you all are to have this available in the city of Oceanside. And the group that's operating out of this kitchen, Oceanside Kitchen Collaborative, they take food from farmers, from distributors, and they have the capacity to process it and develop meals, develop jams, develop different types of products to be able to preserve that food and get it out to people in need. So on to the next slide. We're partnering with the city of Oceanside to provide different services related to supporting around food recovery. So one of the first things we're doing is developing a list of food recovery agencies in Oceanside. So they'll include those two organizations that I mentioned, the Green Oceanside Kitchen, operated by Oceanside Kitchen Collaborative, as well as Brother Benno's. There are many other fantastic organizations in Oceanside that would love to partner with you on a food donation program. So we're putting together that list so you'll have that as a resource. We also are going to be providing technical assistance and general support for helping folks set up a donation program. So what that looks like is we're going to be working with you, coaching, consulting. We can come to your business, walk through the kitchen, and think about what a good food donation process might look like. We'll really provide a lot of deep support to answer any questions you might have and really help you think through what a really robust food donation process will look like. And we'll help match you up to a local food recovery organization as well. And then the last piece that I'll mention is we'll be doing a pilot program offering a business Lean Path pilot opportunity. So that Lean Path tracking system that you saw that was in use at Tri-City Medical Center, we'll be offering a pilot opportunity to a lucky Oceanside business to have a similar program in place. So implementing this advanced food waste tracking system. So if that's something that piqued your interest, please do reach out to me about it. I'd love to tell anyone who's interested more about it. And my email is on this slide. So thank you all so much for paying attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kircha. That was so much great information on opportunities for food donation. And we have a lot of questions coming through. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to launch our third poll so that we can start getting responses collected while we take a few questions. The first question that we have, actually, Daniel, we have two of them for you. So the first one has to do about sanitary conditions and smell and how those types of issues can be alleviated using a food scraps bin.
Sorry, I had myself muted. I think I'm back on. So the smell is, I think Colleen already touched on that we do accept those clear liners. to go into the bin. So I do encourage you to use those. I do want to make sure that you understand if they're opaque or not see-through, those can potentially be identified as contamination down the line. So the clear liners to containerize that material could really help with that odor. And then I want to emphasize too that material that we're talking about is already in the waste stream. It's already in your landfill bin. So that we're not creating something new. We're just separating it. So I just want to make sure you know that you can containerize it in those liners, and it is already there. So it's not, like I said, a new thing that's coming here.
And Daniel, if they have any issues with for instance, their trash bins being picked up and then being put back in the enclosure with the lids open, how would they get with you or Waste Management to make sure that doesn't happen in the future?
So if we're talking about a situation where the driver pins those back, if that's an ongoing situation, I would encourage you to call customer service. That number, we have a localized number for Oceanside at 760-439-2824. The number is also blasted at the end of this presentation as well. And you can call us and let us know, and we'll talk to the route managers about making sure that we don't pin those lids back behind, because we do know that that's an issue and we want to keep those closed.
Great, thanks, Daniel. I have another question for you, and then we'll go ahead and move on to our final presenter, and we'll have time for more questions at the end. So this one actually has to do about the reasoning behind a 64-gallon or a 2 cubic yard. So they're asking, what if we need a little bit larger but not as large as a 2 cubic yard? Why is a 96-gallon not available for office buildings?
Right, and I did kind of brush past that during my presentation, so I'm glad you asked that question, whoever it was. The 64-gallon and the 2-yard are both a smaller option because of the sheer weight and the density of the food waste. So a 96-gallon toter, as it fills up compared to a trash or recycling, gets extremely heavy and makes it very unsafe to maneuver, not only for you and your employees, but for our drivers as well. And same thing goes for that 2-yarder. I know that employees don't necessarily usually handle the bins, but our drivers have to manage to move them around. And then our trucks actually too, if they get too heavy, too dense, they could damage our trucks in the long run. So we have to have them a little bit smaller for the capacity because of the weight.
Great.
I'd like to also add to that, Judy. Food scraps and food soiled paper squishes down. So at first it seems like I need an equal 96-gallon food scraps cart as my 96-gallon trash cart. But the reality is that heaviness and squishiness of the material, it actually fits fairly well in a 64-gallon cart. The other option too for a customer that has limited space and really is going to have to utilize carts versus bins, you can increase your service levels for your cart. So instead of having the cart go 1 time a week, it can go 2 times a week, 3 times a week. So there are options between that cart and that 2-yarder, and that's really in the frequency of collection.
Great, yep, that's great. All right, so we are going to move to our next presenter, but before we do that, I want to encourage everybody to change your view of your screen so that you will be able to see the tour. There won't be a PowerPoint presentation, it's going to be a tour of the plot. And if you adjust your speaker view, you'll be able to see her tour full screen.
Are you ready for me now?
Yes, so our next speaker is Jessica Waite.
Can they hear me?
So, we can hear you. Jessica opened the plot early 2020 as North County's first zero waste restaurant.
Hello, can you guys see me out there?
You know what? I'm going to let Jessica go ahead and take it. Go ahead, Jessica.
Woo! Okay. Thank you so much. I'm blind today, so I'm happy to hear that you can hear me, and I'll be totally receptive to any questions that come my way via text. My name is Jessica. Having me here today to talk about our restaurant and this awesome new program that the city has implemented. I mean, this has been a dream come true, having these resources available. At the plot, we try to be a zero waste restaurant, which is we don't want it to go in the landfill. And so with this new food scrap, we're actually kind of getting this. Have any questions? You can ask them now, you can ask them later. We're totally and receptive to any. Here we are. We do not trash cans. Right? Are we doing okay? Okay, perfect. So we don't have any of those in the dining room. Probably just put them right here. What our servers do is they take the food scraps. Okay, these are mock food, stunt food scraps from the plate, bring them back to the kitchen. So I'm going to show you back this way. All right, and here is our chef, David. And David is cutting up food scraps. In a zero waste kitchen, what we try to do is use every scrap, right? We could use it in a broth or a stock, or we could use it to make something really, really cool that he hasn't even thought of yet. But when he's done, if he does have any scraps that he cannot turn into something else, he can go ahead and put those into his food scrap bin. So in any restaurant, you might want to go ahead and use one of the bins that the city has provided. We use those over at Wrench and Rodent. Here, because we had a compost system going prior, we just used the same buckets that we had going beforehand. So I have 5-gallon buckets throughout the kitchen, and the chefs can utilize those by putting their scraps in the buckets. When the buckets, the chopping might be a little loud here. When the chef is done with his cooking, he has his gloves on because we're being really careful with gloves of it. So he can take those gloves off and he can come right over here and put them in this super neat little container right there. The food scraps that are in the buckets that we've collected go into the food scrap bucket. So again, it's super easy to have bins, buckets, whatever you may use throughout the kitchen. And then whenever your chefs are finished with them, just go ahead and dump it in this food scrap bucket. One thing we did notice at Wrench and Rodent when we implemented this, our other restaurant, was sometimes really where the bins are located. So they have them turned around, their team is washing their hands. You're going to see a lot of paper towels going into the recycling, when really you can go straight into it. So we've got these really good, but sometimes it really helps to just put them in a position that makes sense from a flow perspective. So your team comes in, they have their food scraps in their plateware, they empty this here, they put them through the dishwasher, they wash their hands, and they put their paper towels in here. And again, the chef with any plastic gloves you may have can go ahead and put these in here. So anyway, so that's kind of what we've got going on here. Now we again have the bins pushed throughout the restaurant. We have recycling throughout the restaurant. But at the end of the night, when the team's ready to bring this out back, we've got this on a neat little cart that the city provided. We love this cart. So we can take this whole situation right here, and we can just bring it out back. Now here again, since we did mention we really do try to be zero waste, we want to make sure that we have a couple extra stops, so we can show you those along the way. So here we can actually stop, and we have our plastic recycling program here with the terrace boxes. So you could actually just stop here, and then you can take your gloves and you can pop them in the glove box, and those go to recycling. Otherwise, you can just take this little buddy all the way back. But again, when you actually, sorry, that doesn't go in the food scrap bucket. That doesn't go in the food scrap bucket. But when you actually have this sorted out like this, there's not a lot that's going in this bucket. Even in a restaurant where we don't have everything as streamlined as we have it at the plot, we've got a little bit of saran wrap or a little bit of plastic wrap going in there. But it's an easy little stop to get that there or out to the landfill. So we have all of this stuff. Any plastic wrap that you might have, any recycling. One thing we've been doing, we wanted to talk a little bit about was our, not our food scrap recycling, but our plastic waste. We've been able to minimize that a lot by working with our vendors and also getting into relationships with our farmers and our different vendors in which we send packaged products back out to them. So a good example of that might be something that our strawberries come in here. So there's a lot of little systems that you can put in place throughout your kitchen to make sure that you streamline and waste as little as possible. But this is a really, really good start. So we have your food scraps, you have your recycling, and we have your landfill. And so we just kind of continue our journey. And go that way. Okay, we're going to continue our journey, and we're going to come out. Let's see. And this is our final stop. Now, I know there's 96-gallon trash cans available, so if you do have anything in this little bin, this is where you just go ahead and dump it. And then you've got your recycling right here, and ta-da, the most amazing food scrap bin that we're so excited about. And you just open this baby up, we dump this straight in, and then we just take this back into the restaurant and we rinse it for the end of the night. And so it's been super streamlined. Again, there's been a few challenges over at Wrench. We're a really high volume restaurant over on that side. And a lot of what it's come down to is just streamlining in a way where the chefs and the servers kind of know what goes where. Now, the city has been awesome in providing a lot of kind of educational material to put on the walls, and so that's been really helpful. I found that during the busy night, sometimes I just go back there and I stand and I watch the team and I remind them what goes where, and sometimes all it takes is just moving the buckets around a little bit so that it matches their flow of service. So I'm not saying it's the easiest thing in the world, but I am saying that it's actually been a lot easier than we thought it would be, and we end up with a lot less going into the landfill once we've separated everything else out. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have. I hope that little tour was helpful, if not a little teeny bit awkward, but it's turning out to be really great, and having all of these resources from the city has been incredibly helpful.
Great, thanks Jessica. That's a great presentation. We had a little bit of audio issues in the beginning, but for the most part, we got all of that. So
Get your phone.
you can check I'm going to go ahead and take a few more questions. Oh, Jessica, can we have Ken mute? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a few more questions. If you do have questions for Jessica related to the process that she was showing and what they do in their stores, you can go ahead and send those in. But I have a couple questions. Our first question that's come through is going to be for Girsha. And they're asking, are there any other hospitals, long-term care, and residential care facilities in North County participating in the programs that you were talking about?
Awesome. Thank you. That's a great question. So the Smart Kitchen San Diego program that I was referring to that Tri-City participated in, there are actually a few other folks in North County that participating. So specifically, we have Palomar Hospital in Escondido. Seacrest Village is a senior living facility in Encinitas that's also participating. And again, I just want to emphasize that we have opportunity available for additional businesses in the city of Oceanside to participate. So if anyone is interested in receiving a food waste tracking program, receiving assistance setting it up, and receiving some financial aid as well to help offset the costs of the technology, please reach out to us. It's a really fantastic opportunity. So we're essentially kind of replicating what we've done with those other facilities that already have had this program running for a couple of years now. We're replicating that and providing that opportunity to the city of Oceanside businesses in particular. So again, please reach out if you're interested in that opportunity.
Great. So I know that Colleen had some additional information related to the facility part and implementing a program. But Colleen, before you jump into that, there's a question as well about can I print out the packet? So you want to share that, and then I know you have additional presentation related to the plot.
So yes, all the resources and materials, and we'll be going over that in just actually a slide or two. You can print those out. They can be found at greenoceanside.org. So excellent question. We're providing these materials with the delivery of your containers, but yes, you can also find them online. And then Judy, what was the other kind of question or comment? I want to give a big thank you. Hold on one second. I want to give a big thank you to Jessica Jessica and David, they've done a phenomenal job at the plot and the Rich and Rodent. What I really love about them is they make it real. Yes, they go above and beyond, but I think they're also really honest and fair about how these are some of our challenges, but here's how you can get over them. And really at the end of the day, anyone can do this with just simple tweaks. So kind of taking a look at how your team works within your own building and building the system around that. Really at the end of the day, this program is just about putting, material that is in a landfill bin into a different bin, and really setting up those systems across your restaurant, your building, or your office. And we have a lot of great resources to help you do that. So huge thanks to Jessica and David. They've been phenomenal in helping move the city forward for zero waste. They were early partners to our city's efforts to build our city's Green Oceanside Kitchen. We have amazing partners across the community, including the Oside Kitchen Collaborative. I just want to add to Girsha's presentation. We're very lucky here in Oceanside. We've got some great local resources, great partners. Food recovery and food donation is now a part of the state laws. The state is requiring generators to set up food recovery and food donation programs and systems. The good news is here in Oceanside, we've got infrastructure and services in place to help you be successful with that. So we're feeding people, not landfills.
Yeah, that's great information, Colleen. And yes, definitely. Thanks, Jessica, for the wonderful tour and showing us. And I believe, Colleen, you're going to share about actually helping provide resources that can help you implement that program with the training and making sure that you continue to be successful.
Great. I guess we'll just move it on to the next slide. So Jessica is kind of showing some of the materials that we've provided, as well as Daniel. So essentially with everyone's delivery of commercial food scrap bins, whether it's the 2-yard bin or the 90 or the 64-gallon cart, we are also providing zero waste starter kits. So with the collection bin, you have the option to receive a starter kit. That starter kit includes the brown, we call them Slim Jim, on the left side of the screen, as well as a blue recycling Slim Jim, and then just that little gray insert that Jessica kept pulling up, that is a landfill insert. So we provide these systems to all our businesses. We have inventory in stock. When we contact you and reach out to you and set up your services, we ask you if you like the kit. If you say yes, we provide the kit with the delivery of the bin. If you say you don't need it, you're welcome to contact us at a later time to get a recycling kit as long as supplies last. We do have a limited number of the little carts. So we have enough carts for our food and food service establishment. So if you're in particular food service establishment, not only can you get the Slim Jim containers, but you can also get a cart. So you can easily move it around that commercial kitchen. Again, this is just your starter kit. When you are setting up the new food scraps recycling system at your building or your place of business, we encourage you to walk through your whole business. Find every trash bin that's available to your employees and make sure it's paired with a recycling bin as well as a food scraps bin. So we have lots of great ideas on how to set up systems, where to get resources beyond just this starter kit. And again, the starter kit includes a significant packet of information and resources. Judy, can you go to the next slide? This packet includes posters. We have posters available in Spanish and Tagalog as well as English. The posters go over what materials go into each stream, so you can place these above your zero waste stations across your facility. We also have various guides. Judy, can you go to the next slide? We have various guides, various inserts. We have a training guide, manager's guide to train employees to recycle right. That guide goes over right sizing, downsizing. It goes over team building around zero waste, and it also provides resources to provide to your employees and staff. We have a general overview guide that's nice to give out to supervisors, management, as well as employees. And then we also have the business zero waste service guide. This guide in particular goes over each and every service that the city and waste management provides to businesses. It also provides information and resources about food donation, food recovery, provides information about the city's Green Oceanside Kitchen and partnership with the Oceanside Kitchen Collaborative, as well as provides information on, ancillary services. So if you've got issues with graffiti, or dumping, it provides information on how we can help you be successful, how we can help you replace those bins if they become a public nuisance. So a lot of great information. All of this information will be included in your introductory packet, which will be provided to you at delivery of your containers. If for some reason that packet goes missing or you do not have a copy of it, just reach out to us and we'll send you this packet of information. You can also print these materials from our city's website. We're also providing one-page, two-page flyers and information about food donation and food recovery, as well as source prevention. And we are also developing enhanced materials, just as Geertjan mentioned, that go into more detail, that provide steps and tools on how to prevent wasted food and how to recover or donate properly. So we've got multiple resources. We've got one-page flyers all the way to technical assistance guides. And then last but not least, kind of that silver lining again, we've turned all of our materials, we haven't just focused on face-to-face, we've actually created virtual technical assistance opportunities. So we've developed multiple training videos. We have a training video specifically for food service establishments. And then we have a food scraps recycling training video specifically for all other types of businesses, whether it's a retail business, tax office, realtor office. We have a video that speaks more to your audience. So there are approximately 10 to 12-minute videos that go over all the various elements of the program, goes over what goes into each bin, right sizing, downsizing, best management practices for success. So please visit greenoceanside.org. These videos will get posted in the next week or two. We'll be sending each of you an email once these videos are finalized and available. And we are also providing technical assistance. So if we can't go out there in person, or maybe you're just not ready for us to visit you in person, you can actually set up an appointment with our Zero Waste Technical Assistance team, and we'll meet with you, whether it's over Zoom, FaceTime, whatever platform you prefer. We will work with you, virtually meet with you. We will walk through your business, virtually, and help you figure out how to make this work and be successful. And we'll help you with any of your challenges or questions. So we can do that in person and virtually. So again, lots of resources available. We really want to make this successful, for zero waste and for our business community. So here's all the various resources, greenoceanside.org, as well as waste management. Thank you again for being here today, and I'm here for questions.
Great, thanks, Colleen. I know you guys have so many resources that businesses really just have to look through either a call or on the website, and they've got anything they need to help with training their employees or make sure that their program's successful and reduce contamination. So such a great, great opportunity to make sure that the businesses can start off successfully. One of the questions we had actually has to do with the rollers that go on the bottom of the carts. They're wondering how would they obtain those? So if there's not, if they need more, how can they find those?
So we have a significant amount of resources available. Again, we have enough containers for all of our businesses in regards to the Slim Jims and the insert. In the rollers, we did order enough for our food service retail establishments. Basically reach out to us, email us, and if you are a food service establishment, we can definitely get you one of those rollers. If you're not a food service establishment but think it's the right fit for you, I'm sure we can find a way to help you if we have supplies, or we can guide you in the right direction towards vendors out there that provide things like that. So I've worked with hundreds of different types of recycling and trash containers. We've got lots of great ideas that can help you be successful with the least amount of resources to spend.
Okay, great. And we do only have a few minutes left, so I want to encourage everybody, if you have questions, now's the time to definitely type them into the Q&A box, and we'll try and get to those before we're done. We have another question for Daniel. So Daniel, if you can hear me. The question is asking about having enough space. So I know that Colleen already touched on this slightly, but they're asking that the question is, so if I have a 64-gallon cart that can only be outside and not in an enclosure, do the drivers check it before dumping? Their concern is basically about contamination. So if that cart is outside their enclosure and it's been contaminated, does the driver check? And how will they mitigate issues with contamination?
Yeah, I know that's a difficult situation. I think I kind of touched on that earlier about being creative with securing your bins or carts or containers. I know it's difficult to pull them inside sometimes, but that might be an option. Or if it doesn't sound like you have an enclosure, but if you do, I would imagine you can try and make space in there for a cart if that's the situation. If you have a bin, there's that locking option where you wouldn't have to worry about at least the materials going inside of the container. But if they, if someone illegally dumps near your container, unfortunately, that's a situation that we've tried to mitigate several times.
And please reach out to us directly following this meeting. We can go out to your site, socially distanced, masked, everything, of course, and kind of help troubleshoot it. Or we can get on a FaceTime call with you, take a look at your specific situation, and figure out what's the best steps for you moving forward. And we're ramping this up. Waste management and our team is, even as we see contamination happen, we really focus on education and trying to find the right security to help you be successful.
Great. So Colleen, maybe the next question would be a good one for you. It says, will there be exemptions for sites that do not generate food waste, such as unmanned sites?
So the way the state law is set up, there are not exemptions. SB 1383 applies to all generators. So we have set this system up to apply to every commercial entity. So if you have commercial trash services today, you are required to participate in the food scrap service. We've set up different ways to do that. So if you are some of those smallest generators and like you say in this question, you have a site that doesn't have people on that site, well, either you don't have trash service, but if you do have trash service, I'm assuming it's the minimal amount of trash service. So if you have the commercial bundled cart service, we basically brought in the food scraps cart to be a part of the bundle. So it's no additional fee. So if you are a commercial cart customer today, prior to food scraps, you would have a trash cart and a recycling cart. Once you get your food scraps cart, then it will be a 3-cart system at no additional fee for that commercial bundled customer. If you are somebody that has a 3-yard trash bin on site and you're saying you don't generate food scraps, well, something's going in the trash bin. So we work with you to kind of, go through that trash bin essentially to say, hey, what actually belongs in the recycling? And hey, even though you have minimal employees, minimal people on site, you do have paper towels, you have food soiled paper on site. So we work with you to set up the right ratio of services. Again, that technical assistance is set up to meet each and every business's specific needs. So all of us are different. We're all different in what we generate, and we've set up services to be able to accommodate the smallest of generators to the largest of generators.
Great, thanks, Colleen. I know we have a number of questions coming in about the technical assistance and how to get that set up. There will be an opportunity at the end of the webinar, because we are almost out of time, where you can submit a request for a site visit straight through your survey that will pop up. But Colleen, did you want to address the question as well about, are there breakdown charts? I assume they're meaning the outreach materials available in Korean and Mandarin.
We have not developed them in Korean and Mandarin as of yet. If there is a need, I would definitely work with you to try to develop those resources and materials. We do try to create our outreach materials to be extremely visual, for people that, so that we can be all encompassing, right? So a lot of our materials are set up to be extremely visual. So even if you can't understand, the language on the outreach materials, you can still see and get an idea of what goes into each bin. So please reach out to us directly if you have a significant need. If you have a large portion of residents, that are tenants that only speak Mandarin, we'll try to work with you to provide the best outreach possible.
Thanks. I was going to actually call on Daniel for a couple of the additional questions, but he let me know that his mic died. So Colleen, I'm going to have to.
That's okay. How can I help you?
I can answer, it just might be muffled.
Oh,
All right.
actually, we can hear you. Okay.
Okay.
So one of the questions says, when will bins be delivered? I have 3 properties in Oceanside that are in my portfolio. You want to explain the rollout?
Sorry, my video's out. Yeah, so we're arranging deliveries based off of geographic routing. So if you have 3 properties throughout the city, if they're not near each other, they may get deliveries at different times. But it's basically, we've started delivery August 17th, and that's going through October 16th. And that's our first phase. And we're trying, the goal is really to get everybody. We understand that's not going to be likely. So we do have another phase coming through in 2021, but you should anticipate deliveries between already starting and through October 16th.
And also I want to add to that, if you want to get started right away and set up your food scrap systems, you're ready for it, go ahead and just email us and we can set you up early. So again, we had to route it. So we routed it based upon our existing routes, and we're reaching out to each of those businesses based upon the routing. But if you've got 3 sites in Oceanside and you want your delivery to happen concurrently and you want to roll it out approximately the same time, just reach out to us directly and we can work with you to set it up to a time and date that works best for you and for those businesses. So again, we're trying to roll the majority of the program out this fall. And if you need a little additional time, please reach out to us and we can go over, you know, any sort of delayed delivery towards the end of the year.
And Colleen, so we're going to do one last question. I know we're over time and we want to be respectful of everybody's time, but since the slide's up there, the question is, how do I set up a meeting on site at our shopping center? Who should I contact?
So email oceansidefoodscraps@wm.com. That is our zero waste technical assistance team that would get you set up for a site visit. That would be a great way to reach out to, you know, answer any questions you have. I noticed someone in the comments said, you know, they thought their delivery was going to be a certain date, but they didn't receive their services yet. Please email that team and we can follow up and find out what's going on to help you. So again, Oceanside Food Scraps at wm.com. Another email for assistance, the city email, is greenoceanside@oceansideca.org. Either you contact Waste Management or the city, we are going to help you and get back to you as quickly.
Great. Well, thank you, Colleen, Daniel, Gircha, and Jessica for the wonderful presentations today and for all of your expertise. We'd also like to thank the audience for taking the time to join us. We would really appreciate it if you would just take 1 minute after the webinar to complete our survey. And if you do have questions that weren't addressed, you can type them in to the survey. So thanks again for joining us. Thanks to all of our panelists. What a great webinar, and looking forward to seeing you out in the field. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.